Hi, I'm a first-time poster, but I figured I'd post what happened to me, my brother, and a couple of our friends. This took place about 7 years ago when I was 14. My family and I had just moved halfway across the country from Ohio to Florida, so we didn't know many people, but we had started hanging out with two kids from down the street. One day my brother, which we'll call Kevin, and our two new friends, who we'll call Michael and Tony, and I, were hanging out at the mall, which was right down the road from our house pretty much all day, right until they closed. Okay, this is where things start to get creepy. As we were walking home, joking around, as young teenagers do, my brother stepped off the curb, leading to an oncoming car, honking furiously at him, causing him to jump backwards and flipping off the driver. We all thought this was funny, and started to make a game out of it by standing along the side of the road, making increasingly rude gestures at passing drivers as the sun went down. It was getting late, so I suggested going home as we were still a few blocks from our house when Tony said, "All right, this is for the win," pointing towards an oncoming truck. As the truck approached, he whipped around and revealed his naked ass to the driver, who immediately slammed on the brakes and screeched to a halt. We, thinking this was hilarious, took off running down the street, taking the side road which led away from the truck. After a couple of blocks we stopped, slightly panting, and congratulated Tony on his victory and started taking the back way home to avoid the angry driver. We were laughing and having a good time when this truck comes barreling down the road towards us. At first I don't think anyone realized it was the same truck, because we sat watching it. Then Kevin yelled, "That's the same guy!" I'm not proud of what happened next. "Run!" I yelled, and we all scattered. I didn't look back as I flew down the street, not even realizing I was running away from my house. I didn't hear anything behind me, so I jumped a fence into someone's backyard and crouched behind some rose bushes, breathing rapidly for what seemed like 20 minutes, but was probably closer to 5. I heard a thump and saw my friend Michael shuffling towards me. "I think he's gone," he said in a hushed voice. "That guy is crazy," I whispered back. I think he might be drunk," Michael responded. We stood up scanning the area and saw nothing, so we hopped back over the fence and headed warily down the street. "Did you see where Kevin went?" I asked. "Or Tony?" Michael shook his head. I pulled out my phone to call my brother, but when I did, all I got was voicemail. "His phone must be off," I told Michael. As we got back to the spot we had scattered from, we started calling out for Kevin and Tony but got no response. So we headed towards home, but not 10 seconds later, we heard a loud engine coming closer. Not knowing if it was the same truck, and not wanting to take a chance, I told Michael to hide and we took shelter behind a van that was in the driveway, to our left. Sure enough, this truck comes slowly rolling down the street, and the man driving was yelling for us to come out wherever we were. Come out, little boys. I just want to talk." It was really creepy, and got even worse when the porch lights of the house we were in front of came on. The man stopped the car and stopped yelling and just sat there. I was sweating and trying with all my might to not even breathe in case he heard it. Then all of a sudden, he drove off towards the main road. We took off running once again, and finally got to our street where Kevin and Tony were sitting in front of Michael's house. They exploded into questions when they saw us. Apparently Kevin had headed straight for home when we split, and Tony had run down another street and ended up at the park. The man had followed him, and as he hid behind a tree, the man had gotten out of his truck and stood screaming into the darkness for 10 minutes before turning to get back in his truck. Tony had taken that opportunity to run, but the man had seen him. Tony had decided to run through the yards until he ended up at Michael's, with Kevin hiding behind Michael's dad's car. That must have been when the man drove past Michael and I. It was probably the creepiest thing that has happened to me, and I don't know what the man would have done if he caught us. But, creepy truck stalker, let's not meet. Noob here. First post. Long story. It was a few years back. I'm 27 at the time, petite female, in a small home with my hubby and 2 large dogs. It's summer, and we have no AC. We live near the police station, and a group home down the street. We kind of live on the main drag with a lot of foot traffic, but it's nice. My dogs bark at strangers until pet and acknowledged. They won't bark at you again if they catch your scent in the future. So, our cable is getting a lot of interference. My 32-year-old husband ends up contacting the local radio club, a group of old-timers who got together with ham radios and the like. A few average old white guys come by. One introduces himself as a retired police officer. They pet my dogs and I bail out because this shit is boring. The next morning, hubby is out running errands. I'm half asleep and half naked, when I hear the back door sliding open gently. I sit up, start pulling my shirt on quickly and grab my phone. I hear the dog's tail thumping, which is a dead giveaway someone is greeting her and it's someone she knows. I was thinking most likely my brother. As I turned the corner, my heart sank. It was the radio guy, the retired police officer, standing in the back room of the house. I asked what he was doing, and if he could please go outside and wait for my husband, who I was already dialing. He apologized for walking in. Hubby arrived shortly and I thought it would have been the end of seeing him, but it wasn't. I've had several weird encounters with various men and women over the years. My brother tells me I'm a magnet for weirdos. A week or so went by. I shook off the ordeal and hubby had no complaints with the TV. I decided this year I would plant flowers along the house. I had the dogs put up in the house and I was enjoying a spritzer, working on my garden, alone, in broad daylight. I was approached by a middle-aged, large African-American man. I nodded politely. He walks up to me and starts to talk about the weather, in just a really casual conversation. No biggie. But then things got really weird, really fast. I love women. I love blonde women. I love your blonde hair. He gestured his hand toward me. I gulped. It was this moment I realized he was probably from the group home down the street. He inched closer. I feigned a smile and agreed that blonde hair is pretty. He goes on. I like brown hair too. Brown hair is pretty. But redheads, those fucking whores! I took a big step back, my mind racing. Did he just say that? What the fuck, am I hearing this right? My body screamed at me to run, but I stood frozen like a deer in headlights. I see a car drive past. It's doing a U-turn. I do not recognize the vehicle. An old white guy steps out. None other than the weirdo radio retired police officer. What the fuck? I felt like I was suffocating. The strange man screaming about whores and the creeper radio guy are standing within 5 feet of me. I could hear the blood flowing through my body. The creeper radio guy is asking what this guy is doing. My body felt like lead as the initial burst of adrenaline was running through me. Do I run? Do I scream? My mind raced. I inched further back, clutching my garden rake. In an instant, to my greatest relief, I see my husband's car flying down the street. He could see the exchange as he turned down the road and rushed up to the house. The group home guy continued on his way, and I never saw the creeper radio guy again. So, weird guy who doesn't like redheads, and to the radio creeper, let's never meet again. I grew up in a suburb in Illinois. We had a single-family home and lived in front of a pretty apartment complex. My mom always told me to never play back there and to stay on our street, but I, being 10, and having friends that wanted to play hide-and-seek in the complex, decided to disobey her and just stay alert. At one point it was my turn to be it, and most of my friends had gone home. It was just 3 of us playing around 6 p.m. I looked everywhere, and I couldn't find my friends. Some of the front doors in the complex didn't close properly unless you tugged on them, so some of us hid there. I ended up finding an open door and went in. I looked around and didn't see my friends, so I was about to walk out when a man opened the door to his apartment. He asked if I was lost, and I said no, and I was just playing hide and seek with my friends. I kept trying to leave, and he kept asking me questions. Where's your mom? Where do you live? How old are you? I didn't answer his questions and kept saying, I'm sorry, I have to go. He asked me if I wanted to use the phone in his apartment. I said no again, and just as I was about to leave, he asked, Can I tell you a secret? I stared at him and waited. He said, Your friend is hiding in my room. She's in there and told me not to tell. Come inside and find her. I bolted out of there and ran home. I didn't tell my mom because I thought she'd get mad at me for breaking the rules. I finally told her a few years back, and she nearly had a heart attack. A little background info about myself. I'm a 21-year-old from a small country in Southeast Asia. Some of you may know it as the Little Red Dot. I'm a university student. As part of a module, I had to complete a 6-month internship. I went for the contract signing and had to go back to school to study for upcoming exams. On that day, I decided not to drive purely out of laziness. After the contract signing, I decided to go back to school via public transport. Keep in mind that I always drive and have very little knowledge of public transport routes. So I boarded a bus that I recognized and have seen around my university area. The ride was nice, a great change. A few stops after I boarded, this guy boarded and saw me, started smiling at me. I thought he was just trying to be nice, so I thought nothing of it. I later then realized that the bus was in fact not going towards the direction of my school, so I alighted the bus and found myself at a very sketchy neighborhood known for drug addicts and drunks roaming around at any time of day. When I alighted, he alighted too. He must have figured out I wasn't from there, because I was dressed rather formal, and by the look of horror on my face. I was now trying to find my way out, but was surrounded by blocks, and had no idea of getting out. He started to follow me. Every step I took, he took. Every turn I made, he followed. All the while, having a grin on his face, like he was about to have the best meal ever. I got really scared and started panicking. He wouldn't stop following me. If I stopped, he would start walking towards me. Just when I thought I was going to get either raped or killed, a taxi comes by, and I hailed it. Made the driver bolt out of there, safe and sound, but scared. So, crazy stalker guy, let's never meet, ever, again. Okay. So I'm not sure if this is the right subreddit, but I'm going to post it here anyway. Sorry if this is long, but I wanted to post this. First, some background. I'm by no means a big guy at 19. I'm 5'7" and 185 pounds. I was 16 at the time of the story, and was about the same size. I live in a pretty nice neighborhood where no crime, except for the occasional domestic disturbance call, happens. My house is a split-level home and is down a pretty steep hill. And from the front window, you can see the top of our driveway and a little bit of the road in front of our house. Anyway, onto the story. Like I said, I was about 16 when this happened. My parents had gone away for the week and left me home alone with my 2 dogs, a full-grown Great Pyrenees and a full-grown German Shepherd. My parents left the morning of this event. Soon after they left, my grandparents came over for the day so we could go out to eat later. So I was sitting in my living room with my grandpa, watching TV and carrying on about cars and whatnot, when him and I both noticed a newer model white Ford F-150 that kept driving by my house and stopping at the top of my driveway. We thought nothing of it at first, because people stop at the top of our driveway a lot for some reason. After the 3rd or 4th time they did this, my grandpa and I just kept an eye on it. The truck kept passing by like this for around an hour, and then left. This was the last I saw of the truck, or so I thought. I continued on with my day as normal, and my grandparents left about 7 p.m. that night. A few hours passed and it had just gotten dark. It was summer at the time, so it got dark later. And I was watching TV in the living room with the lights off, and the blinds open just enough to see a little bit of my front yard. I noticed out of the corner of my eye, light from someone's headlights from a distance, coming through the opening in the blinds. You could see cars coming from over a small hill in my neighborhood from the front windows. I didn't think anything of it, since it was a Friday night and people come home late a lot in my neighborhood. I paid no mind to it. That is, until I saw them pointing toward my house. Normally, I would just let this go, because as I said earlier, people stop and turn around in our driveway a lot. Something told me to get up and look. I opened one of the blinds to see who was out there. My blood ran cold when I saw who it was. It was the Ford truck that had been creeping around my house earlier. I ran and grabbed my Smith & Wesson .357 Magnum revolver from my gun safe, and turned on the front porch light and ran outside. As I got outside, 4 rather large men got out of the truck and stopped and just stared at me. Like I said earlier, I'm not a very big guy, but that didn't matter at the time. I pulled the hammer back on the revolver, and in the most intimidating voice I could come up with, I yelled, "Who the fuck are you?" One guy grabbed what looked like a pipe or tire iron out of the truck, and they all started running toward me. I pointed the gun toward them and fired. If you've ever shot a .357 Magnum, you know that it's a pretty loud bang. I hit their truck, hitting the windshield and shattering it. I heard one of the guys yell out, "Oh shit! He's got a gun! Run!" They all ran back to their truck and hauled ass out of there. I called the police and my parents and told them what happened. I didn't tell my parents I shot at them until much later. The police showed up within 5 minutes and took a report from me. I didn't tell the officer that I hit their truck, but that I fired a warning shot to scare them off. He told me they would keep an eye out for the truck. I gave a detailed description of the truck since I had seen it a lot earlier in the day. I had my grandpa come over and stay the night with me that night. I don't know if they ever caught the guys, or even found out who they were. So, creepy people whose truck I shot, let's never meet. For your own good. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the video. I go by Hollow Keys, and as you can probably tell, this is my first video. I've been thinking about making a YouTube channel for quite some time, but had a hard time deciding what my channel would be about. For quite some time though, I've been really inspired by some cool channels within, I guess you'd call it the Scary Stories community. My favorites being Gloomy House, Corpse Husband, Your Maker, Unit Number 522, and Mr. Nightmare. All of these are great channels, and I still have a lot of fun today watching videos from these people. As this is a subject I am also passionate about, I decided on making my own channel having to do with frightening subjects myself. I plan to create videos having to do with true stories, of course, but also the paranormal, creepypastas, and even the horror movie genre. I could even write my own creepypastas. Someday. By the way, please forgive me for the lack of any good imagery. It was quite a bit more work to get everything I needed to make this video than I thought. Anyway, if you liked this video, feel free to like and subscribe. While I am a brand new channel, I will be uploading frequently. I promise I'll do what I can to make my videos as enjoyable as possible. There's many more to come. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. If it's fear you're after, then welcome home.